Hello everyone. So we have done with the P block elements. Hope you have gone through the P block and made the equation diary or maintained the equation diary so that you will be able to look when you want the equation. Okay. Now we are going into the next chapter, that is we have finished P block. Now we are moving on to B and the F block. Now you know what is the D block elements or what are the D block elements or where they are located in the periodic table. You know, in between the S block and the P block, we have studied the S block, that is hydrogen, and the second is beryllium, that family. Then we come across with the P block, that means from the boron to the halogen family. So in between the S block and the P block is the D block elements. Now why they are called D block, that you know, because the electrons are getting into the D orbitals, isn't it? S block means the electrons are getting into the S orbital. P block means the electrons are getting into the P orbital. Then D block means what? The electrons are getting in the D block elements, and F block elements means the outer electrons. What I mean is the valence electrons. The outer electrons are getting into the F orbitals. Okay. So this D block element is also called as transition elements. Transition elements means while going from metal, pure metallic to the non-metallic character, that is S to P, there is a transition. So these are the D block elements, so we call it as a transition elements. Okay. And the transition elements are mainly from the third group to the 12th group. Okay. Now starting from 1A, 2A, then the third group starts from the D orbitals or the D block elements or the transition elements. And the F block is called as inner transition elements. That is because inside the transition elements is the F block elements. Now we will see how it goes and all. Okay. So first what I want to tell you is, before going into this detailed study of this D block elements or the transition elements, you know transition elements are normally metals. Okay, metals. Metallic properties are mainly in the transition elements, and you come across with almost all the metals you are seeing in the daily life. Okay, then we will see one by one. So before going into that, I prefer you to study at least the first series and the second series of the D block elements, or in fact the three series. Fourth series we forgot it about because it's an incomplete shell. So at least you have to study the first series, second series and the third series. Okay. Or we can call it as 3D series, 4D series and the 5D series. 6D series it is not so important because it is incomplete. So at least you have to study the 3 series. And now today, in the beginning, we will familiarize these elements because this you have to study. At least for some people, for some children, if they are looking, they are maybe very difficult to study. Even then, I prefer that you study the first series, that is the 3D series. It was very, very important. Normally from the first series, the questions are asked in the D block elements or transition. So at least you study the first series. It is very easy. Once or 10 times you read through it, you will get it. Okay, or you, as I always say, go for a mnemonics, something like that. So I will just have today we will have a familiarization of this elements which are in the D block, and F block we will see later, but still I will say how the F block comes. Now the first element is, and you also know about the atomic number. Okay, so you know there is calcium, the atomic number is 20 in the 2A. Okay, 2A. Now this is 3 groups. I am telling about the third group, 4, 5th, 6th, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, so from third group to the 12th group is our D block element. Okay, so starting from scandium, so its atomic number is 21. That's why I put calcium as 20. Okay, calcium has 20 and scandium has 21. So forget about this calcium, you know better. So starting from scandium, at least this series you have to study the atomic number, because in coordination chemistry also it is applicable. Okay, so 21, then 22, then 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Then 31 it goes for what? In 31 it goes for the P block. Okay. So at least you study this much atomic number and this elements. Okay. But still this is also very easy. Okay. So once more we will see the D block element or the transition elements as scandium, titanium, vanadium, chromium, manganese, iron, cobalt, nickel, copper and zinc. This is called as the 3D series. Okay, this is called as the 3D series. Why 3D series? Because the electrons are getting into the 3D orbital. Okay, the electrons are getting into the 3D orbitals, and you know what is the maximum number of electrons a d orbital can accommodate in a subshell? That is L is equal to 4. That is 10 electrons, isn't it? 10 electrons. So in the scandium there is 1 d electron. So I can write d1 configuration. Okay, that we will see later. Just to have a hang of it. Then titanium will be d2, because for every element, or if I say metal, 1 electron is added, isn't it, in the d orbital. And you know d orbital is a S, P and D. That is the penultimate shell is the d orbital. So each electron is getting into the penultimate shell, right? So vanadium will be d3 configuration because the third electron. Chromium is the d4 configuration, that is the fourth electron. d5 and d6, d7, d8, d9 and d10. Right? So this is the electronic configuration of, the d configuration, or the how many electrons are there in the d orbitals. Okay, that is I wrote it down. So once again I will tell you I will repeat the elements, that is scandium, titanium, vanadium, chromium, manganese, iron, cobalt, nickel. This you can study it as, these are called as triads. What is it? Triad. That means 3 elements. Okay, triads. Then iron, cobalt, nickel, copper and zinc. Normally you are familiar with manganese, isn't it? Manganese. Then you are familiar with iron in the lab. Then nickel also in the 4th group. Okay, now copper, you are using copper, and zinc granules. So you are familiar with almost all the elements in the 3D series. Okay, now coming to the 4D series. 4D series means what? The electrons are getting again into the d orbitals, but in the 4th shell. The principal quantum number n is 4, isn't it? So it is going into the 4th shell, and which subshell? The d orbital. Again as d1, d2 up to d10, because the maximum number of electrons that can accommodate in a d orbital is 10. Out of which we have studied what? The d5 configuration and the d10 configuration is extremely stable, isn't it? Why? Why it is extremely stable? Because the d5 configuration is half-filled stable and the d10 configuration is full-filled stable. So because of the half-filled stability and the full-filled stability, which you call it as extra stable. So that is important. Okay. Now we will see the 4D series. I will read out yttrium, zirconium, niobium, molybdenum. Molybdenum you have heard of it in the Haber process, isn't it? In nitrogen plus hydrogen giving ammonia. First it was used iron as a catalyst and molybdenum as a promoter. So you know molybdenum. Then this is technetium. Technetium is of importance is that it is the first man-made element. The first man-made element. In entrance exam, it is very, very important, the D block. So all these properties they can ask from anywhere. The properties, all the properties of trends they can ask. So for board exam they will ask. And one more thing I have to tell you is, as as far as board exam is concerned, there are typical questions they will ask from the D and F block elements. Typical, which means the repeated questions. If you are doing the question paper, we will know that what type or what format of questions they are asking for the D orbital. So once you cover this portion, we will have that. So that you can have a very good reasoning in this D block elements. Only reasoning questions or logical questions will come. Okay, so then after this session we will deal with that. Okay. So next is, once again I will tell you, yttrium, zirconium, niobium, molybdenum, technetium, ruthenium, rhodium, palladium. Palladium you have heard, isn't it? While we are studying the standard electrode potential, the SHE, standard hydrogen electrode, palladized palladium is as a catalyst, isn't it? So palladium, silver, it's the best conductor. Then cadmium. Cadmium also you have studied again, isn't it? Okay. So that. So once again I will tell you, yttrium, zirconium, niobium, molybdenum, technetium, ruthenium, rhodium, palladium, silver and cadmium. So this is the 4D series. Okay. And next is the 5D series. 5D series means what? 5D series means here also in the d orbitals the electrons are entering in the 5th shell or 5th orbit. Principal quantum number is 5, that is n is equal to 5. Correct. This also is very important series, starting from lanthanum, then hafnium, then tantalum, then tungsten, then rhenium, then osmium, iridium, platinum, you know platinum noble gas, noble metal, then gold and mercury. Then comes the 6D series. 6D series you don't worry about it. Only the actinoid series will come. The F block elements will come in the 6D series. Okay, so that we will study later. That is starting from actinium. Actinium is a D block element. Then coming from thorium to lawrencium. That is the D block element. That we will see later. Okay. So, before beginning into the details or properties, it's a very simple chapter, but it's very informative chapter, very logical chapter. So before going into these details, you have to have a thorough knowledge about this. At least I am saying, at least this one series, that is the 3D series and its atomic number. Okay, then now we will see how to write the electronic configuration and all. Okay. So this is about this transition elements or D block elements. Now while again if you want some more details, we can say almost all the metals you know, that is copper, then zinc, then mercury. Mercury is the only metal in the liquid state. And one more thing, all these transition metals are having melting point greater than 900. So many important properties are there, 900 degrees Celsius, except this zinc, cadmium, mercury. See, in this case, listen, the zinc, cadmium, mercury is of a special type of a D block element, or I may say this is not a transition element. These three, you are not considering this as what transition elements or D block elements. Why? Because this is B10 configuration, that is fully filled configuration. Or I can say, if you want a definition for a transition element means, transition elements are those elements which can have partly filled d orbitals. What I said? Partly filled d orbitals. That is up to d1 to d9. Filling up of d1 to d9. That is called as partly filled d orbitals. Two conditions. One, in the ground state. Ground state means as it is. And also in its common oxidation state. What is it? That means in the common oxidation state also, it must have a partly filled d orbitals. Which means the zinc, cadmium, mercury, if you look into the electronic configuration that we will see later, just for information, it is 3d10 and 4s2. See, 3d10 and 4s2. In the ground state, it is stable because D has got 10, perfectly okay. S has got 2 electrons, duplet, perfectly okay. So in the ground state, it is okay. It is having a fulfilled stability. So it does not act as a transition elements because it does not have a partly filled or incomplete d orbital. That is more exact. Incomplete d orbital. And also one more point, in the ground state as well as in its normal oxidation state. Now when you talk about oxidation state or normal oxidation state, zinc, cadmium, mercury is having a +2 oxidation state. +2 means what? These s electrons are going out. Then also what happens? Then also this is in a fulfilled state. There is no partly filled d orbital. So that is why these three elements are exceptions of what? Exceptions of transition elements or d block elements. And that is the reason they are also called as pseudo transition elements. What is it? Pseudo. Pseudo means pseudo transition elements. We have studied some transition elements. We have studied some pseudo something in chemical kinetics. Pseudo first order reaction, isn't it? When one of the reactants are in excess, you call that to be a pseudo unimolecular, pseudo first order reaction. That means pseudo means false. So these three elements, we call it as pseudo transition metals. Okay. Now hope you have got this idea of which all our elements are there. Again, if you want to come back, these are called as triads. See, triads means the three elements we call it as triads. Or for studying also it is easier. Iron, cobalt, nickel. Okay, ruthenium, rhodium, palladium, and osmium, iridium, platinum. Okay, so these are called as the triads in the d block elements or even in the periodic table. Okay. Now, then again, if you want to come back for silver, you know the best conductor. Gold, so many commercial applications for silver, gold, platinum, etc. In fact, iridium is also comes under that nowadays, isn't it? So then tungsten for the purpose of filament, isn't it? In the bulb, electric bulb. Then hafnium. See, this is also an important thing. Zirconium and hafnium are called as twin metals. What is it? Twin metals. Just for information, right? Twin metals. These are called as twin metals. Okay. Again, there like vanadium. See, in all these cases, vanadium, manganese, iron, cobalt, then platinum, then nickel. Where is nickel? Nickel, etc. are used as catalysts. You remember? It is used as catalyst. So almost all the metals you can have one or more applications in it or one or more uses in it. Okay, so that is the peculiarity or the beauty of what the transition elements or the d block elements. Okay, now one more thing I want to tell you is, see, in the F5d, 5d means the electrons are getting into the d orbitals in the fifth shell. Now lanthanum, after this lanthanum, then it comes again 14 elements there. From lanthanum, what happens is 5d. Now before filling the 5d of hafnium, listen carefully, this is hafnium, HF. Before filling the 5d orbital of hafnium, you know, this is the third series, first series, second series, third series, 4f orbital begins to fill. Listen very carefully. 4f orbital begins to fill. Then only 5d orbitals begin to then only the 5d orbitals will fill up. So what happens here? After this lanthanum, there are 14 elements. That is from cerium to lutetium. There are 14 elements in which the 4f orbitals are filled. That is 14 elements means F1 to F14. The 14 electrons are embedded, are getting into the F orbital or the F subshell. So they are called as lanthanoids. Why lanthanoids? Because it is starting from lanthanum. After lanthanum, all these 14 elements are getting into a special case. That means these two you call it as F block elements. See? F block elements. Why? Because the electrons are getting into the 4f orbital. Or here it is the 5f orbital. See, before this 6d of this RF, it is the 5f orbitals getting into this. So that is why the 14 elements, you know, what is the maximum number of electrons in an F orbital? 14. So that you call it as, this is called as actinium. Why? Because after actinium, these 14 elements, that is from thorium to lawrencium, you will study later. Okay, from thorium to lawrencium, that 14 elements are called as actinoids. What is it? Actinoids. And from lanthanum, after lanthanum, the 14 elements, that is cerium to lutetium, it is called as lanthanoids. Clear? So you can say lanthanoids and actinoids are called as F block elements or inner transition elements. Got it? What are inner transition elements? Inner means what? Inner to the D. Isn't it? It is anti-penultimate. Okay, so that is called as inner transition elements or F block elements. Transition elements are called as D block elements. Okay, so this is a rough idea or a rough intro of this D block elements. Hope you understood. Correct? Or if you are not familiar with the elements, please go through 5 or 6 times. Just read it like a song, like scandium, titanium, vanadium, chromium, manganese, iron, cobalt, nickel, copper, zinc. You will make it, I am sure you will make it. Okay, so just go through it. At least one you have to study along with the atomic number. So hope you understood. Yes, this is a clear-cut picture of this. What is D block? Because you have to have a hang of it. Otherwise, now if you are getting into this configuration or the properties, or if I say chromium, suddenly you have to remember what is the electronic configuration. Yes, it is 3d5 4s1. Why? So all that things comes into picture. Okay. So these are all some of the things which we have to go for the intro of this D block elements. Okay. So this is about, and all you have to know is it is starting from the 3A to the 12th group. That is between 3rd group and 12th group are the D block elements. Right? Now we will start the properties or the characteristics one by one. Okay. So let us start. First, we will always study about the electronic configuration, and that too, the electronic configuration, I will say, is very, very important. Then I will rub the 4D, 5D and 6D and keep it the 3D as such. Okay. The 3D also, one more name it is there as first series. First series. This is second series and this is third series. Fourth series you forget it because it is an incomplete shell. Okay. So we will start with the 3D series or first series. Okay. Now, hope you understood. Okay. Or just go through the book, the periodic table. You have the periodic table. Then this osmium, I told you osmium, iridium, platinum. This osmium, iridium, platinum are the metals having high density and also high oxidation state. So many peculiarities are there. When you go for higher classes, we will study one by one. Okay, so much peculiarities and so much variety of characteristics in this D block elements. Now you will start one by one. That is, we are going into the general configuration. We will study in detail about this, the first series or the 3D series, starting from scandium to zinc. And you know, zinc is called as a zero transition element, or we don't call it as a transition metal. Why? Because of the fulfilled stability. There is no d electrons, that is vacant d orbitals or partly filled d orbitals are not there. So you can say it as a non-transition element, alright. But it is included. Why? Because the 10th element is coming into the d orbital, isn't it? So that is why you call it as d orbital or d block element. But technically it is not a transition element. This is pseudo transition element. Now we will see the electronic configuration. Okay, electronic configuration. Now the electronic configuration is, you can say it is, listen very carefully, n-1, see, n-1 d 1 to 10, listen, ns 1 to 2. Listen very, very carefully. We have to write the electronic configuration as n-1 d. Why I put n-1 d? Because, for example, you start with 3d, that means 4. The principal quantum number must be 4. If it is 4s, n-1 means you will get 3d. Then only the 3d starts. So, the point is, you have to start only from the 4th shell or the 4th orbit. Okay, or the 4th shell or the 4th orbit. So, if I say N minus 1 D, Ns 1 to 2. Now what is this 1 to 10 represent? 1 to 10 represent means the electrons are going into the D1 up to D10. So it can have values D1, D2, D3, D4, D5, D6, D7, D8, Dn and D10. That is why we said 1 to 10. Correct? Okay. Now what is Ns 1 to 2? You know how many electrons are there in s orbital? Only 2. So that is why we call it as 1 to 2. And if you ask me why you are not putting Ns2 simply? Because you are saying it is only d orbital and the d electrons are coming into it. Now why can't you put the Ns2 configuration itself? That is because, you know, actually there is a very good point in that. Which means the n minus 1 d orbital and the ns orbital have same energy. Very important. For example, if I say 3d and 4s. If I say 3d and 4s, the 3d orbital and the 4s orbital are having same energy. There is only a small energy gap between the 3d and the 4s orbital. And because of that valid reason, what happens? The electrons from the 4s orbital can go into the d orbital. That is why we have taken it as 1 and 2. It can be 1 or it can be 2. That is, there is a chance of what? Getting this s orbital electron into the d orbital. It's a very valid point. Why? Because this d orbital and the s orbital has got, there is only a small energy gap. Almost you can say, okay, it is having the same energy. That is why it, and due to that small gap of energy, the electrons from the s orbital can jump into the orbital, the d orbital. That is why you put it as 1 to 2. Okay, so this is the general electronic configuration of what? Of this d block elements. Now we will see, we will write the electronic configuration of this first series, that is the 3D series, because this is very important. If I say next chapter is coordination, there you have to apply this. So at that time you will get confusion. Array, how you got that or this like that. Okay. So we will write each of this electronic configuration of these elements. Right? Now coming to scandium. Scandium means it is 21. That's a trick in this. That's a shortcut to it. Okay. Now scandium, you know it is 1. Correct. Now I can write 3D1 and you know that 4s2 completely S2 because after the S only D is getting into filling. So you can very well write it as 3D1 4s1. That means 21. If I say a short trick, see 21. This 1 is for this D1. See. Okay, or you can have your own tricks, that's okay. But what I am telling is just to have a fun, that's all. Okay, so scandium. Now you tell me what is about titanium. Titanium is 22. Now how will you write? It can be 3D2. See, 3D2 and 4s2. This is all same because once the s orbital gets filled, then only the penultimate will get filled. Okay. Now titanium, scandium, titanium, vanadium. Vanadium is 23. How you will write? 3D3, 4s2. Right. Now chromium. What is chromium? Chromium is 24. 24 means we can very well write 4. That comes for the D. That is 3D4, 4s2. Now chromium, manganese. Manganese is 25. Okay. Now 3D5, 4s2. Isn't it? Okay. Now iron. Iron is 26. Iron and all most commonly coming element is iron. Okay. Iron, cobalt. So it is 3D6 and 4s2. Correct. Then coming to cobalt. What is cobalt? Cobalt is 27. You can write 3D7 because 27, 4s2. Nickel. What is it? 28. That is 3D8, 4s2. Okay. Then copper. That is 29. That is 3D9, 4s2. Am I right? Now 30. That is zinc. That is 3D10 and 4s2. Got it? Just today itself you have to write this. Only the first series, the 3D series. You have to. Okay. Now listen. While seeing this electronic configuration and talking and taking the extra stability of these elements, just see chromium and copper. See, just see the electronic configuration of chromium as well as copper. The rest you got the idea how to write, so you just get it practiced. Now we will take the two things, that is chromium and copper, because manganese you know 3D5. What is the peculiarity of this 3D5 4s2 and 3D10 4s2? It is a completely fulfilled and completely half shell, isn't it? D electrons, half shell means 5, completely means 10. Okay. Now coming to chromium and copper, there is an exception. Exception in the electronic configuration. So now we will see what is that exception. Correct. Now coming to chromium and copper. Okay. Now we will see the chromium as well as copper is 29. That is 3D 9 4s2. Is there any logic behind it? If you see the electronic configuration of chromium, it is not like this. Then it will be like 3D5 and 4s1. See, this is 4, 3D4 and this is 4s2. And I told the logic that since these two orbitals have same energy or only a small energy gap between these two orbitals, what happens? The s electrons can jump into the d orbitals, isn't it? So it jumped and then it forms d5. And why it jumped? Because when it jumps into the d orbital, the d orbital will have a half-filled stable, isn't it? Half-filled stability. And so it is 4s1. That is why I told you this is having a same energy gap. Questions can be asked. Okay, so what's the value point? The energy gap between the d and the s is very small, so that the s electrons can jump into the d orbitals. Okay, or vice versa. Now what happens? The same logic can be applied here also. It is 3D 9 and 4s1. What will it do? It will become 3D 10 and 4s1. Isn't it? So these are the two exceptions of chromium and the copper in electronic configuration. So hope you understood this. So what I want to do is, today itself you have to study at least one series and write the electronic configuration. And then you noted this speciality, these two specialities of this elements like chromium and copper. And due to this speciality also, the trends, in the trends like IP, melting point, boiling point, etc., there are variations occurring. Due to the half-filled stability and the full-filled stability of copper and chromium, the physical trends are also getting changed. Okay. So that's all about what the electronic configuration. So hope you understood, isn't it? Now we will see some more details into the general trends. Okay. Now this is just an electronic configuration. Now we will see the physical property. Okay. Now coming to before going to the physical property, I already told you zinc, cadmium, mercury are non-metals, isn't it? Then one more thing, the electronic configuration I told you. Now some characteristics of this d block elements. Okay. Then we will move on to the physical property. So this is also very important that we will study in detail characteristics. Okay, characteristics of d block elements in general. I am telling in general. Okay, like what we have studied in the P block, the anomalous behavior of fluorine, oxygen, etc. This is the general characteristics of d block elements or transition elements. Okay, there are 3, 4, or 5. One is it has got a variable oxidation state. What is it? Variable oxidation state. Okay. Variable oxidation state. What do you mean by variable oxidation states? When you study the valencies, there we talked about the variable valency, isn't it? And we come across with iron 2, then iron 3, then mercury 1, mercury 2, copper 1, copper 2, isn't it? Then if you talk about vanadium, this vanadium, you know, and manganese, it will have an oxidation state manganese from +2 to +7. See, 5 oxidation state, +2, +3, +4, +5, +6 and +7. In fact, 6 oxidation states are there. So that is the meaning of variable oxidation state. Whereas when you talk about these metals and non-metals, non-metals also it is there, but in metals like sodium, potassium, etc., there are only +1 oxidation there, isn't it? So we are more than the P block. P block also we have seen the variable oxidation state in nitrogen and phosphorus, isn't it? Even in oxygen. Then halogen also there are +3, +1, +3, +5 and +7. So more than that, see in manganese there are 6 oxidation states. So it is called as variable oxidation state. Okay. Second is they are colored compounds, or they show colored property. They show colored property. Then third is they are used as catalysts. You know, I have given you so many examples where in transition metals you are having catalyst. Okay. Then variable oxidation state, colored, then catalyst, then they form complexes. Very, very important. Okay. They form complexes. Okay. And the fifth one is normally they are paramagnetic. So these 5 points you have to study. You have to write and keep it and study, because normally for all these questions can be asked. Why they are used as catalysts, why they are having color, why they form complexes, why they have variable oxidation state, and why they are paramagnetic. One of the main reason for all these is the same one, that means it has got unpaired d electrons. What is it? Unpaired p electrons. Sorry, d electrons. Paired means it will become diamagnetic. So due to the presence of unpaired electrons, that's a value point. In all these cases, one point is same. That is due to the presence of unpaired, not paired, unpaired d electrons. Keep in mind. Keep in mind. Due to the presence of unpaired d electrons, they show all these characteristics. See, variable oxidation state, they show colored compounds, they used as catalysts. There are so many things. They form interstitial compounds. Okay, they form complexes, and they are usually paramagnetic in behavior. So this you study the 5 important points or characteristics of D block elements of transition. General, okay, or exceptions can be there, but general thing, there are 5 characteristics. Okay. Now there is one more. So this is okay, right? Now one more important thing in this transition element is, when we study P block and S block, normally we study the trends along the group, isn't it? You will say first group elements, or you will say second group elements, or coming to the P block you will say carbon family, nitrogen family, oxygen family, fluorine family, then noble gas family, etc. Or the trends we talk more about in the groups. But there is one exception in this when studying the D block. Of course, there are trends in the groups, but more than in groups, we talk more about in period wise. That means you can say there is a horizontal similarity in this D block elements. Okay, what is it? You can call it as horizontal similarity. Rather than the vertical similarity, we say it as group wise similarity. Here you can see the horizontal similarity, that is the period wise similarity. That is one of the more important things. If you ask me, is there any group wise similarity? Yes, of course there is group wise similarity, because the size of the shell is increasing, etc. there. But more into we are dealing with the horizontal similarity. So these are some of the characteristics of D block elements. So are you fine with this? Now we will move on to the physical property. This is the general configurational trend coming into that section. Now we will see. The physical properties one by one: melting point, boiling point, ionization enthalpy, then oxidation state, then like that. Okay. So we will see one by one. That is the physical property. First is the physical property. Just make notes of your own having read the book thoroughly. Then only you will find it more interesting. If you are hearing so many points at a time and you cannot recollect it, that's not your problem only. So you have to get your homework done. Then only it will come. Okay, it will reciprocate on you. Okay, now we will see the physical property. Now, while discussing on the physical property, I can say we have studied the physical properties of metals. What are they? The metals are hard, then the metals are sonorous, yes, copper, etc. are there. Then the metals have high melting point and boiling point, remembering. Then the malleability, the ductility, then the conductivity, isn't it? So, and the solubility. Ionic compounds are different, covalent compounds are different, metallic compounds are different. So, all these properties, the physical properties which are shown by any metal, that no matter whether it is an S block element or a D block element or a P block element. I mean, P block elements, metals are there because on the group, the last element is an absolute metal. So, whether it is any metal, all the properties what metals are showing is also shown in this transition metals. So, all that property they are shown. So, that you have studied in the lower class. But one property you haven't studied is that you will study in the solid state, the first chapter, you will take it. So, that is about the structure, the lattice. Okay, about the lattice structure, or the structural lattice. In this, exceptions are zinc, cadmium, mercury, and I think it is manganese also. Okay, zinc, cadmium, mercury and manganese. These four elements have more than one lattice. Okay. Lattice means you will study later. That is HCP, hexagonal cubic packing, cubic close packing. Okay, then there are FCC structures. So we will study later. So exceptional, all have one type of lattice, but zinc, cadmium, mercury, manganese, etc. have more than one crystal structure. Okay, that is just to remember that. That is the structural lattice. When we talk about the structural lattice, okay, that we will see in the first chapter. Okay. Now we will see the first property, that is, you know they are hard, the metals are hard. Okay. Then low volatility. What do you mean low volatility? Volatility. What do you mean low volatility? Which means high melting and boiling point. So this is a very, very important point. So these transition metals or the D block elements has got high MP and B. So that is why it is low volatile. If it is high volatile means what? High volatile means only a small temperature will make them volatile, isn't it? So normally these transition elements are hard and low volatility. Low volatility means what? They are having high MP and BP, or melting point and boiling. Now the reason for this. See, as I have told you, all these characteristics will come under mainly 3 or 4 reasons are behind that, logically speaking. That's all. So once you know that reasons, that's why I told you that it is very easy to score in this D block. That is the same, there is no other reason for that, which I have told you. All the 5 characteristics, the reason one is that due to the presence of the unpaired D electrons. So that type of points will be there. So why it is having got a high MP and a B? Why? Because, see, you know about ionic bonding, isn't it? And you know about the covalent bonding. One more bonding is there, which is called as the metallic bonding. What is it? Metallic bonding. That means metal to metal bonding is called as metallic bonding. So, due to this high metallic bonding, or if I want to say precisely, the interatomic metallic bonding. There is interatomic. What do you mean interatomic? Between two atoms. Between two atoms. What type of bonding is there? There is metallic bonding. Isn't it? So due to the presence of this metallic bonding, and see, when metallic bonding happens, how this happens, all these metals, I mean the transition metals, if I want to talk a little more about metallic bonding, I will tell you, all these are metals, isn't it? And these are from left to right, the size is decreasing. Why? Due to the effective nuclear charge is increasing. Okay. Now, the first point is, since the nuclear effective E is increasing, the first point, and the second point is the metallic, the strong metallic bond. That's what I am discussing. The effective nuclear charge increasing, that is the size of the atom is decreasing, and also the number of valence electrons are there. Valence electrons are also increasing. See, in this transition elements, there are d electrons. There are so many valence d electrons are present in that. So due to that, and as well as the effective nuclear charge increasing, they can have strong interatomic metallic bonding. And this is the reason, in order to break this metallic bonding, a high amount of temperature is required. That is why these are having high boiling point as well as melting point. So that is the value point. Why it is having a high melting point and boiling point? The point is, the value point is, they are having high metallic bonding, or you can say interatomic metallic bonding. And as you know, what is the intermetallic bonding? Between the metals. So why that happens to be very, very effective? A thick bonding is there because due to the effective nuclear charge increasing, thereby the size of the atom decreasing, and also there are number of valence electrons are there with respect to the standard D block elements, isn't it? The D block 1 to 10. So there are number of valence electrons. So due to this, a very, very close metallic bonding can be there. That is the first point. So that is why it is having a high MP and a D. At the same time, that's the first point. At the same time, these transition elements are having high enthalpy of atomization. What do you mean by this? You got it right? That is nothing due to the metallic bonding. I told you how metallic bonding, metal bonding. Okay, that is very, very strong. Why it is strong? These 2 points. Because as the effective nuclear charge increases and there are number of valence electrons are there, the effective metallic bonding is very, very high. So in order to break that, you need a high melting and a boiling point. But here also there is exception. Now there is a graph given in your book. If you are seeing the graph of this, I will draw here, right? I will draw here. If you look through the graph, of this melting point, you can have the melting point, you can have it is increasing. Okay, now there is a dip here and then it is increasing. There is a fall in the melting and boiling point, and this is manganese. See, if I tell you manganese, here I start with scandium, titanium, vanadium, chromium and the manganese. Then it comes to decreasing. Okay, decreasing means slight decrease is there. Okay, then there is a fall. So this is how the melting point graph. Now in the second case also same thing. That's a dip and then it is decreasing. If you see the graph, you can have an idea of that. Now, so since the metallic bonding is very, very strong, okay, then you can say high MP and BP. That is why it goes on increasing. And another point is that why it goes on increasing? Because the number of unpaired electron increasing. See, that is, listen very carefully. Why I said number of unpaired d electrons increasing? That means scandium is d1, d2, d3, d4 and d5. This is the half fill. Now after manganese, iron, what will happen? D6 pairing starts. You know what is pairing? You know what is pairing? Okay, I will tell that and go. Okay. Pairing means, you know, this is a d orbital, isn't it? D orbital. How many shells? 5. Now according to Hund's rule of maximum multiplicity, the first electron, that is the D1 electron, will go in the first. You know, right? dxy, dyz, dxz, dx square minus y square and dz square. Okay. It is nothing like dz square is last and dxy. No. Because since all these are degenerate, having same energy, you can put anything in that. Okay. If you put dyz, that's well. If you put dz square in that, right? Okay. So that's all. Degenerate orbital. So D1, then D2, D3, D4, D5. Hund's rule of maximum multiplicity. Only the full orbitals has got at least one electron. Then the pairing starts, isn't it? And the pairing starts D6 ion and starts like opposite spin, isn't it? Then D7, D8, D9 and D10. Hope now you understood, right? So, since the paired electrons are increasing, the number of paired electrons are increasing, there is a peak in this graph. Okay, but unfortunately, see, there are exceptions. This manganese having the greater number of unpaired electrons. As far as the theory is concerned, or theoretically speaking, it should have the highest melting point in that period, isn't it? Then after this ion, the pairing starts and the melting point decreases. And what we have said due to the number of unpaired electrons, the metallic bonding also increases. That's another point. See, that is why I told you in D block element, even though it is a small chapter, every point is important. Value point, and I say. Okay. This also another value point is coming. What? Number of unpaired electron increases. As the number of unpaired electron increases, the metallic bonding also increases. Okay. And now, if you ask me why there is a fall in manganese, if theoretically speaking, manganese having a 5d electrons, unpaired electrons, have got a maximum MP. But till chromium, after chromium, this is chromium. After chromium, for manganese, there is a dip in the graph, which means the melting and the BP decreases. Here the reason is, see, in manganese, there are 5 electrons, 5d electrons, okay, which will give a half-filled stability. Listen, this is having a half-filled stability. Now what manganese will do? This won't take part in bonding. Since it does not want its stability to get altered. Got my point? See, this is well stable. Okay. Now, if we have a stable position, we don't want to change that position, isn't it? Because we are stable. Once you get to an unstable position, then again you have to choose for the stability, or you have to wander for stability. Okay, I want a stable. So you have to do some reactions and that. So once you are stable, it won't alter that stability. So if these electrons does not take part in this metallic bonding, that is why there is a deep dip in the chromium to manganese, isn't it? So these electrons does not take part in the metallic bonding. That is why the melting point and boiling point decreases and it is high volatile. Okay. So that's the reason. Now, hope it is clear, the melting and boiling point and the graph. The same logic is applied to the second series and third series. Okay, you can have that logic, the same logic. Now we talked about enthalpy of atomization. What do you mean by enthalpy of atomization? Thermodynamics. What is enthalpy of atomization? And generally, the D block elements have high enthalpy of atomization. Okay, it is having high enthalpy of atomization. Now again, the reason for this high enthalpy of atomization is same. What is the reason? Since there are number of unpaired electron is greater, and also what is it? High MP and BP, and also high metallic bonding. So see, all these have the same value points. That is the two value point. One is high metallic bonding, and second is number of valence electrons. And that means as the number of valence electron increases, the funda is as the number of valence electron increases, the metallic bonding also increases, thereby the enthalpy of atomization also increases. The three are interconnected. These three, that is enthalpy of atomization, melting and boiling point, metallic bonding. All these are increasing with increase in each one. Okay. Now this is enthalpy of atomization. And you know, if you talked about thermodynamics, or thermodynamically speaking, enthalpy of atomization means the energy required to convert 1 mole of a substance into its constituent atoms. That is what we call it as delta HA. What is delta HA? Enthalpy of atomization, which means its pure definition is the energy required to break 1 mole of a substance, a molecule or an atom into its constituent atoms. For example, H2 is a molecule. If it is converted into 2H, it is converted into atom. The hydrogen molecule is converted into atom. So you can call the enthalpy of atomization. It is something kilojoule per mole. Okay, it is an endothermic because we are giving the heat. Okay, now this you can say, see, there is one more thing lying inside this. See, what is actually happening in this? The 2H is breaking and it is forming 2H, right? 2 atoms. A molecule, the bond is breaking and it is forming 2 atoms. So, can we call this enthalpy of atomization as bond dissociation enthalpy or bond enthalpy? Yes. In this case, it is true because the bond enthalpy of atomization is same as the bond dissociation enthalpy. But in everything it is not true. In this hydrogen molecule or oxygen molecule or hydrogen molecule, it is same because the bond has to break. So it is also called as a bond dissociation enthalpy. Now, the reason for high enthalpy of atomization is it depends on the number of unpaired electrons. Now, since the number of unpaired electron increases from D1 to D5, the enthalpy of atomization also increases. Thereby, you can have more metal-metal bonding. Okay. Now, if you see a graph of this enthalpy of atomization here, enthalpy of atomization, you will have the same graph I can draw. See, in the first case, the enthalpy is here, again there is a dip. Now, while you go for 2D series, there is a greater enthalpy of atomization. When compared, see, I will tell you, when compared to the first series means 3D series, the 4D series and the 5D series has got a greater enthalpy of atomization than the 3D series or the first series. So, you can say the metal-metal bonding in heavier metals can be seen more than in this series like iron, cobalt, nickel, scandium, titanium, aluminum. That is the 3D series. So, in the 4D series and 5D series, the metal-metal bonding will be very, very familiar. Okay, that is where quite often you can see the metal-metal bonding in the heavier metals than in the 3D metals. So, the value point is same, that is, as the number of valence electrons increases, the metallic bonding increases, the interatomic metallic bonding increases, thereby there is an increase in the enthalpy of atomization. So, you got that atomization. So, now you are wondering, if you say hydrogen molecule, here there is only one metal, isn't it? If you talk about copper, or if you talk about sodium or copper or tungsten or iron, what is its enthalpy of atomization? What is enthalpy of atomization? Here, in the definition itself it says that 1 mole of a substance into its constituent gaseous atom. That is the definition. That is the definition of enthalpy of atomization. But when you talk about this enthalpy of atomization in metals, see, metal is a solid, right? Now, what is this enthalpy of atomization here? It has to be in the gaseous state, isn't it? So here you have to have from solid state to gaseous state. So here the enthalpy of atomization must be what? The enthalpy of sublimation. Got it? Simple. Here enthalpy of atomization can be related to bond enthalpy because we have to cut the bond. Here it is only one metal in the solid state. So here you have to convert it into gaseous state. For that what enthalpy is needed? The enthalpy of sublimation. So it depends on element to element. What is enthalpy of atomization? Okay. So that is about the enthalpy of atomization. So greater the number of valence electrons, greater is the enthalpy of atomization. Okay. So that is about the enthalpy of atomization. So next is we will see the variation of ionic and atomic labels. That we will see in the next session. So please go through the section very carefully. Any doubt, just give me a call. Thank you.